Okay, Yalda, this is one of my favorite topics. Sometimes an influencer comes in literally a moment, right time, right place, sometimes a lifetime. I always think back when I speak, I talk about my grandfather who was from my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, my aunt were from Kiev and they immigrated to Canada. And my grandfather used to take me for walks in the park in Montreal when I was about five. And he talked to everybody, which is obviously where I must have picked it up. And but one day I asked him, I call him Zeta, how do you know all these people? And I remember him looking at me. He says, "You see that person over there?" One day I smiled at him, and he looked up and smiled at me. And then he came over, and we talked. And then someone else saw us, and they came over and smiled, and we then ended up doing things. And I thought, as a 5-year-old, hey, life's pretty simple. I just got to smile at people, and it's hitting me more and more. And sometimes you try to overcomplicate these things as you get older, but it really is as simple as sometimes a smile to influence people. And we all have many people that have done that or influenced us. But can you share two or three that actually have been influential in your life?
Yeah, I'll say it's like more groups of people. So definitely my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I kind of grew up in the shadow of my father, who was a veteran of the Lebanese Civil War, and he survived a really gruesome event that happened during that time. So um, yeah, growing up, I was always known as my father's daughter, and also a bit as a miracle because obviously the odds were against. He was in an accident and everyone died. In that specific incident, and he was the sole survivor. And the fact that I was physically there for everyone's amazement was, somehow of a miracle. But also all the admiration that they had for him and for his service and for kind of, the message that of courage that he portrayed at the time, was very admirable. So that was always like the leitmotif of my childhood up until this day. Like people see me in Lebanon, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're Dave's daughter," like, and then start crying, like, okay, 40 years later. Um,
That's
and
cool. That's
and my
cool.
mother married my father after his accident. So she married my father paraplegic, knowing the risks that he could perhaps not have children, that obviously he would require a certain amount of care. And that speaks a lot to her sacrifice.
Yep.
So obviously I look up to her, having done that and, raised me and my sister,
That's
and
amazing.
and yeah, effectively dedicated her life to keeping the family unit together, but obviously taking care of my father. That it's not something that you willingly sign up for. Typically, it happens later, but then she knew exactly what she was getting herself into,
That's
and I think
just to interrupt for a second. That is a leader who cares on steroids. That's like,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's heroic
yeah.
in itself. So I would say, yeah, my parents definitely, they influenced me. I really look up to them. I'd say the second group is maybe teachers. Like like I remember like some specific moments of my, as a teenager or even earlier, specific teachers who really impacted me there. Like I'll never forget I think it was my history and geography professor at school. I was probably, I don't know, in 10th, 11th grade. Just that connection, that like the that teacher who champions you and just sees your potential and, pushes you, but not because, they just because they can see things that you're not yet seeing for yourself.
Right.
And I think having that coach, that champion, I really hope that my kids will have, influencers of the sort that surround them. And I'd say the last group of influencers who have inspired me would be my children. Like there is pre-mom Yalda and there is post-mom Yalda, and those are very different people. I think when you have kids, a lot of the white noise that kind of clouds your life, your judgment, your perspective kind of disappears. And you're just so much more focused and have so much more clarity on the things that really truly matter. And I think that's, you know, influencing and at its peak.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that because teachers lots of times don't get the credit of how they've influenced people. There's a great movie long time ago. It was called Mr. Holland's Opus with Richard Dreyfuss, and he was a music
Yeah,
teacher, and he never thought he really impacted anybody. But then he saw at the end of the movie how many,
yeah,
and
yeah.
true story, how many he did, and
There's Dead Poet Society as well. I remember that movie.
yeah, it was brilliant, and the
Good
story.
Will
I,
Hunting,
I,
that's another one.
Yeah, exactly. And I love true stories like that. And you're right, pre-mom, pre-mom, post-mom, when it's other people, when it's just ourselves, we'll do what we do. But when you got other people, especially your kids, um, it does change you and you're building legacy. And so, the one thing I've always found is that we should realize we're always influencing people ourselves. Sometimes we know it, we don't, and we should be thinking about you're either be positive or the alternative, and it seems to me there's no alternative. And just remembering that. So you've influenced me just in the short time we've known each other. So I appreciate
Hey,
that, and I appreciate that you shared all that. Thank you so much.
likewise, we've been bouncing off each other's energy. I've enjoyed this dynamic.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.